Well, it's a beautiful day here in southern Iowa. I got my friends, I think it's a 2004 or 5 Yamaha Raptor 350. It's a customer of mine, it's also a friend of mine. Anyways, I had a no-fire situation on it. I tested stator and the pickup coil and this and that, and we got it ruled down to the stator, so we did a stator swap on this one. I wanted to go ahead and take this video before I got it put back together, but didn't get it done, so I'm just going to do the best I can here. I'm sure there's probably a lot of videos out there on changing the stators on these. I wasn't going to make a video until I seen a concern that I thought probably should get out there. So anybody who doesn't have a book or something and is taking on this challenge, just give them a little tip. I usually like to have a book when I've done things I haven't done before, and I haven't done a stator on one of these yet. So this was the first one I'd done. Didn't have a book, but I didn't figure it was too much over my head. So anyways, this is the old stator I took out. The way I ruled the problem out to be the pickup coil, or the trigger coil, which is right here, and they come wired in with the stator, but it's actually a separate component. It's not the same component, but the way they wire them, it's kind of a bit booger to just put in the pickup coil, and my customer wanted to go ahead and put the whole stator in, so that's what we did. But the way I tested it was, there's values for when you cross, the red wire to the green and yellow wire and all this stuff with an ohms reading. I can't remember what the ohm reading is supposed to be, but the old stator was definitely out. And then I also checked it against a old 350 Yamaha Moto 4 I have, because they'd be pretty much the same stator, and because it's the same engine except for the manual transmission, and the values were different in the Moto 4 end, so ruled out the stator. Anyhow, so what you have here is, this is just a plastic cover, alright? So you take this cover off, alright, then you have a bolt and washers and a seal retainer. This goes into the end of your crankshaft. This stator actually mounts in the case itself, so when you pull the case off, the stator is on the inside of it. Alright, so first of all, what you have to do is you have to take this bolt off and the washer behind it, and then there's this plug deal with splines on the inside of it where the crankshaft bearing rides, and the seal that pulls out, right? Leave this seal retainer on there because everything comes off with the cover. So take off the bolt washer and then pull this plug out. Alright, there's flat spots on it, so you can hold that with a pair of channel lock pliers or a wrench when you go ahead and pull that bolt out. Alright, I marked mine just to be sure I got it back where it's supposed to be. It probably doesn't really matter, but I did that anyway. Now the part I want to tell you guys about is, alright, also what rides inside this cover is your starter clutch. Here's your starter. Alright, so there's a dowel that goes from the engine case, and the other end of it comes into this outside case here, and that holds your starter clutch gear. And there's also a snap ring on there and a washer, and then the bearing inside of the starter clutch gear. So when you pull this off, the ones that have the stator in the case, like this one, they're kind of a booger because the magnets are on the flywheel, and so when you pull this off, magnets are still pulling against you. Anyhow, so I pulled this off. It was kind of coming like a booger, and then I noticed that dowel that holds the starter gear that goes in the engine block and then in the case here was kind of hanging up. Anyways, I got it worked off of there, but the dowel came with the case, right? So it just left the gear in there hanging out. Well, there's a washer in there that had dropped off, and I seen it, luckily, because it dropped off, went down in the bottom, and then slid right down into the oil sump inside of the engine, which could have been catastrophic. And if I hadn't seen that, I wouldn't have noticed it, and I just barely seen it. So that could happen to anybody. I was able to get a magnet in there and fish that washer out, so then we won't have any problems. Anyhow, so that was something different I've seen from a lot of other machines, is that dowel with the washer and everything on it. So you just want to make sure when you're taking this case off of here that you pay attention to that dowel that holds on your starter clutch gear, because if it all comes apart like it did on me and stuff gets in the bottom of the engine and you don't notice it and get it back out, it will be catastrophic. Other than that, it's just the reverse of taking it apart to put it back together. I did on he bought an aftermarket stator, or I got it, he wanted me to, but he didn't want to go with the OEM stator because it was too much money, so it was a lot cheaper to go with a aftermarket one. The problem is the stator went in and it worked, But you see here where it mounts onto the back of the stator, there is a gap in the mounting ring in there, and if you see right here where this old stator was, that screw and this hold down mechanism has to fall in that gap or it won't fit. And then also there's a hold down for your trigger coil wire. Well, the stator that came, the aftermarket one, this was wrong. Like it was over here or something. I can't remember exactly where, but it was wrong. It wouldn't fit and the wires wouldn't reach and all that. So I had to take this off and then move it to where it was in the gap, and it was kind of a pain. So you may run into that if you're dealing with an aftermarket stator. Other than that, pretty easy process. Oh, you are going to want to drain the oil first as well, because this does carry oil in it. All right, and these 350 Yamahas are kind of known for, or at least in my experience, for the oil plug rounding off and getting seized and all that. I've actually had to take them out with a chisel before and just put in new ones. But the nut on the oil plug, or the bolt, I guess, where you put your wrench, is real shallow, real short, and then it's also like a pot metal type of material, so they tend to round off very easy. Seems like they're already rounded off when I get them. Being this is not my four-wheeler, and the customer didn't really bring it here to fix the oil plug, rather than, I tried the oil plug once, and it didn't want to come easy. I've seen them seized before, and I had to break them to get them all the way out. So the way to drain the oil was, what I did was I just took a hand pump and stuck the hose down the dipstick tube and just pumped it out that way. If you can't get the oil plug out, you can either do that, or when you break this case, it will come out of there. So worst case is you just pull this case off and then all your oil comes dumping out. Hence the bucket right there, but we didn't have to use it today because we got it sucked out of the oil tube. Anyways, I'd pay attention to those few things, and it's really not that hard of a task. So good luck. Hopefully you don't have any problems.